Seafood. It's one of the towering pillars of our Australian culinary reputation.
A reputation that's recognised throughout the world for its sensational taste and sizzling innovations.
But there's more to great seafood than just what you see on your plate.
And you're about to dive deep into the full story of how it gets there.
I'm Andrew Ettingshausen. I've spent the past 2 decades fishing for fun on screen, yours and mine. Now I'm getting serious, teaming up with some of Australia's toughest professional fishing crews and introducing them to some of the country's most creative chefs.
Together we'll sail Australian waters from east to west
to show you the whole amazing journey from ocean depths to the heights of culinary delight in each delicious adventure of seafood escape. It's early in the morning, very early. While most of Sydney's 5 million people are still sleeping, the Sydney fish market is already a buzzing hive of activity. By the end of today, these forklifts and trucks will have shifted almost 40 tonne of seafood, and local trawlers like the Cape Conway make their contribution to this massive trade every day, come hell or high water. Hot young Sydney chef Josh Nyland and I have been invited to join the Cape Conway crew to see just what it takes to keep the catches up to the voracious appetite of the world's 3rd largest seafood market. Skipper Richard Begnato has his boat base right here at the Sydney Seafood Market dock in Pyrmont, just a couple of k's up the harbour from the famous Coathanger Bridge and Opera House. Commercial fishers have been plying their trade on Sydney Harbour for years, supplying fresh seafood for our table. I'm on board the boat Cape Conway, and today I'm out with Chef Josh Nyland, and we're going to get outside and find out what it takes to be a commercial fisher in Australia's biggest city. This is where we start our seafood escape. As they head out for a day of trawling off Sydney's northern beaches, Richie and his deckhands, Greg and Christian, must have one of the most beautiful, not to say glamorous, drives to work of any fishing crew anywhere around the world. It may look like a tourist cruise, but this is the start of a long and hard day's work. It could be the start of up to a week at sea for these boys, and the Cape Conway is built to accommodate them in comfort. And she was built in far north Queensland, so they know they have a vessel designed to handle anything up to cyclonic conditions. Not that there's any danger of that on this fine morning. And Skipper Richard has the time and clear sea space in front of him for a relaxed chat with his 2 guests as we cruise out through the heads.
My father was a fisherman, my uncle's a fisherman. They've been here since the late 50s. They started up. First time I went out, I was 4 years old. They used to put me in a fish box and used to slide around the deck and sort through the fish, just as and every Saturday and Sunday and every school holiday, I was out there with my dad fishing, and it was like the natural progression to go into the business,
With a working heritage and experience like that, Richard is the right man to introduce Josh and me to the workings of a modern seagoing trawler.
The net's like a big sock. Yep. 4-inch rubbers on the bottom. You don't damage the ocean bottom as much. We have sweeps, which is these long ropes. They'll go along the bottom as well, and they'll herd the fish. We've got these steel trawl doors. The water pressure goes along the plate and it spreads it. Those big steel plates we've got on the back of the boat, they'll spread the net. Yep. And sweets will herd it into the net.
It's a highly mechanised workplace for Richard's small crew of just 2 deckhands. And when you add the movement of waves and wind to this whirling mass of machinery, it's not a place for the faint-hearted.
Well, it's all action stations right here. Lots of chains, lots of cables, very dangerous stuff. And up the top here, Richard's actually got the controls. He can slow the winch up. The big plates have just come in, and the net's now getting dragged in. We've been trolling about 3 knots for the last hour and a half. But the birds are just all starting to circle us, and 100 dolphins are cruising up the back. All looking for a bit of an easy feed. Dolphins absolutely everywhere over the back here. But now the big net's getting pulled in. You can see these winches pulling the ropes in either side.
As the business end of the net is drawn closer to the boat, the crew tenses up for a critical phase of the trawling work cycle, the all-important job of hauling the catch aboard.
The boys don't have a huge job to do, but they've got to make sure they do everything correctly. They're pulling in a massive net as well, lots of weight there. If something goes wrong, it can be a disaster.
Well before the crew see their catch, it's attracting plenty of attention from other fish hunters who gather around in hope of picking up an easy meal. Catching a few crumbs from this net has got to be easier than chasing your own prey all over the ocean. And packs of hungry dolphin muscle in on the action, giving the seabirds some stiff competition. And finally, it's our turn. Josh's first chance to see what we've caught in quantity and quality. It's looking like a good haul, but the big question for Josh is, what kind of fish has he got to choose from for the cooking he'll do later today? And the answer is, take your pick, Josh.
Then you can almost keep, you know. Oh, good flatty.
Out the front of Sydney, mate. You can't get any better.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Beautiful.
Already half a dozen species that you can take back to the markets and people will be eating.
Can't get any fresher. This fish here be within hours, mate.
And within minutes, we're on the way to a chef-cooked lunch.
We're heading back to the jetty now. I'm looking forward to getting back onto terra firma and seeing what Josh can cook up. All the boys are heading out again. We've just come in on Cape Conway. Hey, mate.
Thanks,
Good
Rich.
luck, boys. Thanks, Rich.
Perfect. He's
And-
left us with a few fish.
Exactly. We caught a whole pile of different species, didn't we? There
We
was
did.
gurnard, there was obviously these beautiful blue spot flathead. Now, what are you going to cook up for us today?
Fish and chips.
Fish and chips.
Good old fish and chips with the VB and the batter. Doesn't really get much better when you got a fish straight out of the water and good quality batter, and we're just going to do this quite simply, but there's a few things to know about the batter.
There's something I can cook.
Yeah, you can definitely do it. It's a good family-friendly one, and even on the outdoors we can knock it up on a little one burner here, so
Beautiful, all right.
we're going to get stuck in. So 2 great fillets of blue spotted flathead there. We're waiting for our oil to come up to temp, and in the meantime we've got a tartare sauce here that I've put together at the restaurant.
Gosh, that looks fantastic.
Conventional tartare sauce is always made on mayonnaise, so I wanted to put it with yogurt,
Okay.
just because it's naturally acidic. So there's that. And then the chips here that we've done, the way we do it is we take dirty Sebagos. They got to be dirty because
Gotta be
the
dirty.
boys have got to work.
Ah, right.
Yeah.
God, you're a hard boss.
And then we cut them into chips.
Yep.
And then we do a par blanche in the deep fryers and cook them until they develop this skin around the outside. Then by the time you get to that time of frying at 180, 190, then they go really golden and crunchy, and that's when you get those little end bits that are
Okay,
golden.
they stand up and move around and they're all crunchy.
We've got 200 grams of rice flour.
Yep.
We've got 100 grams of self-raising, which helps to make your batter nice and light and fluffy. Baking powder, 5 grams, just for an additional boost. The magic ingredient, Russian rocket fuel, Karloff vodka.
Oh, wow. It's like
so-
2 a.m. in the morning somewhere.
And a bit of honey. The honey adds a little sweetness. Mainly it's because we're not using as much beer from a regular recipe, and we just dissolve that into the vodka.
Wow.
So by adding a little bit of honey, what we've found was that we were able to get like a golden kind of beautiful colour.
How many mistakes have you made along the way to actually get to this point?
We're burnt through a lot of vodka, that's for sure.
Went through a lot of vodka.
Yeah. That honey's gone into the vodka now, and we're going to add in that 175 grams of vodka, and we get all that honey in. And then if you want to crack that VB,
There we go.
been rocking around on the Cape Conway all morning, So we're going to take 275 mil.
And why beer? Why beer? Why?
Well, the yeast that it has, you know, when you take that first bite of fish, it's like, oh, wow.
So it needs to be sort of mixed, but not overly.
Yeah, you don't want to make it
fine.
super fine. So that's lovely. We've just thrown a couple of chips in there now. We've got our flathead, which we can now dredge in a bit of this rice flour.
I love catching flathead. They're one of my favourite species to catch, but I guess if you need to get them in quantity, it's the commercial guys who you've got to rely on to bring them into the fish markets.
For the kind of need that Sydney chefs have and, you know, our restaurant has, we do need those guys to bring in this kind of stuff. So these chips are looking great. They're taking a bit of colour. I'm going to go with this flathead. Now you've always got to be careful putting things into hot oil. Make sure you've got a nice coating. So if you hold it by one of the pieces that you've separated at the top, and I'll go at it with two hands, just so that nothing gets stuck together. And then we can lower him in like that, wait for the oil to take.
Fantastic.
And that'll probably take, on this stove, I suppose, around 8 minutes, I imagine, just with it being a little bit off the pace.
Fish and chips.
Looks delicious. Really excited about this. I think it's a rare opportunity to have a fish this fresh out of the water and it goes straight in, and we're about to try something pretty special, I reckon.
Yeah, looking good.
Always got the other one if I need to put it in. We're going to grab these out.
Wow, look at that.
So we're just draining these off well. Always good to set it over a wire rack if you've got one, instead of a paper towel. If it sits on paper towel, the oil goes in the paper towel, then it's still sitting in oil.
Wow, this looks amazing. Have a look at that fish. I can't believe it.
And we'll go straight away with some salt. This is just nice sea salt flakes. And you can see what's happened to this batter is vodka alcohol is so much higher as a percentage than beer. So it burns off that much faster. And then you're able to get something crisper and a little bit more volcanic, I suppose.
Right, this looks magnificent.
And we put some of these chips down. And then we're just going to put lashings of this tartare sauce on the side, I think. And that's probably the best way to eat.
Oh.
Blue spotted flathead and Sebago potato chips. Something that's quite underutilised as well, blue spot. It's always the duskies that we hear about and the more glamorous. But when they're fresh, there's nothing better. So.
Nothing better, and look at that. That is just amazing. Well done, champion.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Josh.
Cool, let's get into it.
Oh,
Try that, look at that.
that is fantastic.
That juicy. Hear that crunch.
Wow.
Yummo.
Wow. I'll have to try one of these chips as well. Chef Josh Nyland and I have rejoined the fishing boat Cape Conway for another day of trawling off Sydney.
At the moment, the lines are out, the big net's getting pulled behind the boat, and we're hoping for our second catch to be just as good. The captain's given it a thumbs up, loads of good fish on the screen. Hopefully, they'll end up in the net.
This time it's not just deckhands Greg and Christian who our skipper Richard will have working for him. Josh and I are on the job too.
Now here comes the net. It's going to be a wet spot right here in a minute. Their turnaround's pretty quick. It's non-stop for these guys. They'll do a number of shots in a day.
We're here for the future. We've got a lot of money invested in these businesses, and it's no good for me if in 3 years' time there's no fish left. We need to make sure that everything we catch is sold, is marketable, and that the stocks are going to be in good health in years to come, you know.
As the net from this shot reveals, the stocks are certainly good and healthy today. The deckies are literally knee-deep in seafood as the demanding job of sorting the wanted and unwanted fish types gets underway. It's all hands to the pumps now, and Josh and I are quickly into the thick of it.
Well, the sorting table's got plenty of action over there, loads of different species, some beautiful big flathead. These are quite expensive at the markets. I think Josh is having a bit of fun here at the back. I think this part here is very interesting for him because there's so many different species that he uses in the kitchen. And to actually be out on the trawler here, to see where it all comes from and get involved as well, I think it's a special day for him.
It's a bewildering array of fish for Josh and me, but the pros have strategies to cope.
We try and work to minimise the labour on deck and also evaluate your product through the quality. We have logbooks where we put all the data where we've worked and all the catches. We submit that to fisheries, and I've sat on management with fisheries, but there's a lot of unknowns. Are we going to be here in years to come? We don't know.
All Greg and Christian know is that they've got a boatload of fish to sort through, and on a warm day, they don't have a lot of time to do it. But it's a job they love.
So how long have you been doing this caper?
Over 20 years.
20 years? And you enjoy it?
Love it.
Do you? And you've been working with Richard for a while?
Yeah, 3 years.
Just following the fish?
Yeah, just different times, different places. Learn something new every boat.
Yeah, right. You like eating fish?
Love it.
Yeah, right, okay.
And as the work goes on and we eventually get on top of the massive rush of fish, there's time for the Cape Conway crew to learn something new from their visitors. It's a chef's tip that might change the way these guys and you look at these leatherjackets.
They're a good fish, aren't they? But there's a lot in the head that you can actually use, isn't there?
Definitely. Already I've taken off 2 cheeks off another head, and there's so much meat there. And you can see how beautiful and pearly it is. It's almost like a scallop.
And that's out of the cheek?
That's just cut out of the cheek. And that's absolutely delicious. You can poach that in a little bit of soup, and it's beautiful.
And for icing the catch down, we're cool.
We've got a refrigeration system, try and keep the room between 0 and -5. Try and get the fish down to temperature as quick as possible. So quality, the taste, fresh is always best, you know. You know, I believe that I'm here to supply the 80% of the population that doesn't get out there and fish for themselves, who've got land jobs and, you know, commitments and can't get out to do recreational fishing. You know, I'm there to supply seafood there into the restaurants so they can get, you know, pristine, beautiful, fresh seafood, you know, on the plate, you know.
Now that refrigeration system has a big job to do, keeping Richard's catch cold and fresh through another tourist cruise. It's the inevitable trip back up one of the world's most celebrated harbours and to the heart of a city which is naturally famous for the quality of its seafood restaurants. And shortly after we dock, we'll take you to one of the best coming up. Sydney, more than any other city in Australia, is all about living on or near the water. The harbour dominates life here to such an extent, it's easy to see why the signature dining style of the whole city revolves around seafood. And Josh Nyland's Australian fish eatery St Peter is at the forefront of this sea-flavoured lifestyle. With experience at legendary restaurants like Est and Fishface, Josh is making a big name for himself in his own place. And I'm excited to be here. In his custom-designed cold room, Josh dry ages fish to produce unique flavours.
That's been up now for 5 days.
And the albacore?
And the albacore, 7 kilos from day to day 10, surprisingly.
And Josh has another unique flavour idea to share with us.
Well, Josh, we had a bit of fun out on the open ocean, catching these different species, so many different species, but you chose the leatherjacket.
Leatherjacket, I think it's fantastic. One, it's cheap, like it's a great cheap fish. We can all see it at the markets. A lot of different ways you can serve it. Today we're going to wrap it up in a new jacket, paper bark. So
it gets a new jacket. The leatherjacket gets a new jacket.
Yeah. So
all right, show us what to do.
This great paper bark, and it doesn't have a great deal of flavour, but by burning it, giving it some heat, then you're kind of toasting it, getting some of the moisture out of it. So by burning it and getting some of that moisture out of it, then you get this great aroma that you can have a smell.
Oh gosh,
yeah,
you can really smell it there. Gosh, that's a fantastic
like
flavour actually. It is.
Yeah.
It's got that really good, amazing bushfire sort of
It's
smell.
got that sense of where we are. So,
That's great.
So
But you can just smell the aroma
Yeah,
now in the
exactly.
restaurant.
so the leather jacket. So with this paper bark, we're basically just going to dress him up. The second piece of bark then on top, and just kind of contour the bark.
I have actually had barramundi where we've sort of wrapped it in the paper bark and put it in the coals under the ground a couple of hours later. Wow, just the flavours and the taste of it was fabulous. So
Yeah.
I can imagine what this leather jacket's going through right now.
All we're doing is a knot in the tail just at the bottom there. So we're going to cook this on a wire rack just so that the air travels around the fish. So we're going to pop this into the oven, 220 degrees. We're going to leave him in there for 15 minutes.
Okay. Now what do we do in the meantime?
We're making a sauce of sweet and sour native apples, and we're going to cut some shallots, and this is the base to our sauce. So it's almost like a little sweet and sour chutney. So to start this sauce off, this is just extra virgin olive oil, and then we go straight on the heat, get it nice and warm, and then we're going to start sweating off our diced shallots, another bit of sweetness. We're going to put all of our ingredients in. I've got some raw sugar here. I've got white wine vinegar going in on top. It's quite a lot of vinegar. It's quite an acidic sauce, and our beautiful native apples. And then we push that back onto a fairly medium high heat and just let it roll down. Our leather jacket is ready. Smell that.
Wow, that's awesome. That looks beautiful. Like the way the bark's all sort of, not burnt, but sort of got that coloration
It's taken
now.
shape almost.
It has. It's taken the shape of the leather jacket. And so right at the moment it's still cooking.
Still cooking. So we're going to snip off these tires now. All right, there he is. Smell that.
Wow. There's the smokiness of the paper bark.
Yeah, full of juice. And let's leave it in the bark and we'll just go straight to the plate like that.
Wow.
That's our fish. It can keep resting there.
So you got this sauce to come?
Yeah, we've got this sauce, so that's just going to come up to here and we're just going to let that fall over the top of the fish. We're not going to overshroud it with too much.
But look at the presentation.
And we've got some roasted chopped up macadamia nuts. Again, very unique Australian product that I think we all love. A little touch of native thyme over the top just gives it that real savoury, musky quality. And it just,
A little bit of colour really lifts the whole dish.
makes it pop. So yeah, this is St. Peter's leather jacket in a new jacket.
Wow.
It's really nice to cook for you today, Andrew.
Fantastic, awesome. Like, amazingly, this was swimming around in the ocean not that long ago.
And good for me to get a bit of sun as well.
Exactly.
Stuck under these fluoros all day.
That was awesome. All right, well, let's give her a try.
Yeah, knife and fork there.
Go to fishfiles.com.au for more information on leather jacket or any other table fish. Make sure you follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And find this and other delicious recipes on our website. I look forward to seeing you next week when I head off on another seafood escape.